Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Autopsy with Maddie P. I'm your host, Maddie P. Girl. What is cracking, queen? We are once again in a new set. I've officially moved out of that rinky-dink, jaunt-ass apartment. Y'all know I suffered at the hands of cigarette smoke and domestic violence. Don't live in a cheap actually, but I'm not going to sit here and act like that apartment didn't serve me. Ellie just farted so loud, I think. And I look up, her butt's in the air. That apartment really served me because I lived there for 2 years. And those happened to be the first 2 years of my sobriety. I was drunk in that apartment and I only got it because they don't do any checks and I didn't have to pay. I need to stop. I didn't have to pay first or last month's rent. And I was broke at the time and could not get in anywhere. And I was blessed beyond belief, honestly, that I was able to live on my own in the beginning of my sobriety. And I think it really helped me to dive into myself. I was trying to silence the way that I felt and just trying to stay sober, which was the strategy I went for. And I was able to dive more into the way I truly felt and the darker sides of the beginning of sobriety. And the sleepless nights were dark and alone always. Which, isn't the best thing probably ever. But for somebody like me, it allowed me to think on this really logical pathway that I could divulge into those things and understand for the first time it's because I'm sick is the way that I feel this way. And I could kind of assess it more like that because I was on my own and I knew that I couldn't dive into that darkness again because I'd end up drinking and I really didn't want to. So I put some padding on myself and that was the beginning stages of being my own friend, I think. And from there I was able to date myself. Y'all remember the season where, and I need to go on a date by myself again soon, but I have a man now. Can we get an applause for that? Right? And I dated myself and I was celibate and it was just me in my energy and my healing. And irregardless what was going on around me there, I was super blessed for that. And so I'm getting on a tangent and I don't care. This is warm-ups and we're warming up. From there, I knew I was going to be moving out soon and I was scared to go back and clean everything out because again, it served me. And that was the space that I was alone. When I got into a relationship, I made these promises with myself that the way that I was for that year, I wanted to keep that feeling about myself and that I always put my mental health and my sobriety and who I am first. And I was really worried when I got into a relationship, I wouldn't be able to do that. And some of my old traumas did crop back up. And I have faced a few things that I didn't face in my healing process yet, the way I thought I had. And I was worried I was going to go back and see that I hadn't done myself justice in some ways. And that just wasn't the case. And I thought it was so beautiful and that I'm in such like a good relationship where it's encouraged. The promises I make to myself are encouraged. And that is a beautiful thing. So it has been, needless to say, it's been a lovely transition of moving. And I did not cry once. I just want to get the fuck out of that apartment. And that's it. That's a wrap on the jaunt and that fuck ass green table. And the 2 weeks, like posting every 2 weeks instead of every week has been really good for my mental health. Really good for also progressing in this possibility of new career and exploring things and like my hobbies and my fitness and sponsees and the program, everything. But when I sit back in front of this mic, sometimes in front of this camera, I'm like, do I remember how to do this right now? All of that to be said, we don't have a studio set up here yet. So, hey, I guess we're going to do a few warm-ups. Today I'm keeping it short and sweet, to the point. I will say that I am obsessed with Tate McRae. This comes as no surprise. Actually, I'm wearing a Britney shirt right now. My girl Britney. And I love the pop icons. Pop is dead. Pop died whenever Britney did her shit and got exiled, whatever. Pop is dead. And I think Tate McRae is doing a fantastic job of bringing it back. And Addison Rae, I was on the Addison Rae train for a little while and I fell off because I don't mind the TikTok to music arc when it comes to Addison Rae because I think she has it. And for me, for pop, I will speak on pop's behalf. It's not about the voice. It's about the moves and it's about the image. They are going to, as you all know, pop is going to be deeply edited. You could take any bitch off the street and make her sound good in the realm of pop. Just add some bass on that shit and call it a day. So I think I support Addison's arc. And I don't support all the TikTokers or all the influencers that are arcing to pop. She did that shit. But I am not a fan of the coquette stuff. I'm not. I think it makes me uncomfortable because when it starts to look too much like a grown girl acting like a baby for male's attention, and it's disgusting. Did not watch Epstein. I'm going to get there. We'll talk about it. Don't worry. We'll talk about the Epstein shit. And something about that just is unsettling to me. So she lost me when she put her hair in those two pigtails and put some glitter on her while she was naked. Now, a thing that I do like about them up and coming is the body positivity. These new pop stars, and I don't even, you see the hesitation because they will never be them. They will never be the OG pop stars. And that shit is dead. It's not coming back. I wish it would. But they body on T and they're like thicker down below, you know, it's just like, they're not rail thin. And I love that. I do really like that is what young girls are looking up to. And I will never agree when people are like, that's young girls shouldn't be looking up to half naked girls on the stage. That is how it's always been. We will always look up to half naked girls on a screen, on a stage. It's the industry. So you can do, maybe I'm overstepping. You can do what you will with that information. I don't know why I got on that tangent because Tate McRae's music, will never listen to it in the car. Not really that good. Sports Car grew on me only because I heard it 50,000 times. But watching her is like the most mesmerizing shit. She is the hottest girl on the planet. And that's not lesbian me saying that. And that's what the industry has evolved into, is how much do we like staring at this person? Because we will give them a lot of money if we like staring at them. And it's just the way of the world, y'all. It's just me being honest, okay? And so, yeah, I'm mesmerized by her. I'm obsessed with her. And her actual singing voice with her tests is really good. Like, she does, you know, I don't know if you guys even know this. Artists do for VIP, they do a mic check. And I think this is a newer situation. It's giving to me, not MagCon. Comic-Con? No. Remember like James Charles and then that Emery Bingham? Y'all know, if you know who I'm talking about, I fucking love you. Where they went on stage and sang at like a beauty guru thing. Like, come on. I'm gonna be mad I don't remember this in editing. But I think that's new. It's giving that. I think social media brought that in. And I'm not divulging that any further because I don't have the time and I don't care. But anyways, her voice is good. I'm going on a lot of tangents today about stuff I shouldn't. Moving on. 2 things have happened in space news. They kind of coincide. So they found the largest flare, black hole flare, the brightest. I'm a black hole girl. As we all know, Interstellar is like my favorite movie of all time. And I really love the concept of black holes. And I used to sit and think about them. When I couldn't sleep, I would just picture myself in a black hole. I'm weird like that. And the second thing is that there's been a tear in space, not caused by light or heat. It's like at the edge of the Milky Way, I think. And apparently when I was looking up more information about this to make sure that it was real, there is a group of people, a sub community, if you will, of people. I think they're Reddit based, presumably, honestly, that they create, and maybe it's a video game. I don't know. They created this rip in space, and thus warriors and clans and things come out of it, like armies, alien armies. So I was really having a hard time, like, is this real or not? It's real. But those two things happening around the same time is kind of tripping me out, because, like, what if space breaks? And how is there a tear? That provides the nothingness. Like, it only amplifies that in my brain, because there's a space where it is nothingness. And I wonder, organism wise, like, what's happening there? Because there's not particles, there's not stars, there's nothing. It's black. And you can, like, there's a picture of it, I think. That could be AI, though. And I'm easily fooled by AI. I'm extremely gullible. My kids are going to get me. They're going to eat me down with AI. I already get eaten down with it now, like, all the time. And sorry that I'm not a robot and I can't detect. Like, somebody was showing me something like, oh, you think that's real? Yeah. Sorry that I'm, like, actually not a robot and I can't detect if something is real or not. Let me just put on my fucking X-ray goggles. Shit pisses me off, honestly. So now I'm sitting here thinking maybe the picture is AI, maybe it's real. Go find out for yourself. And everyone should be scared, because that's happening. And then we don't talk about news. We don't talk about politics here, because we all know I'm a firm believer that we are not supposed to take in as much tragedy as we do. Do I think it's important to know what's going on in the world in support and in safety of yourself? Yes. But we don't talk about the news here. But I think, you know, the state of the world right now, you know, that me, as if I know. My boyfriend tells me this stuff and I hear it walking around. And I'm not scared to admit that. Again, I, like, stand for that. If you are somebody that stays out of the loop. So all of this coinciding at the same time, I would not be surprised, and I need to not manifest this type of stuff, but I would not be surprised if the world ends during our time. Dare I say it. And I do think I'm destined to see it. Do I want to? No. Do I want to live forever? Yes. Have I seen nearly enough? No. I will never see enough. But I give the energy that my fate is meant to see. I need to stop talking. I need to stop. Who do I think I fucking am? Like, oh, actually, who do I think I am? Okay, final little warm up, and we are already 15 minutes in. Good gracious almighty. We had to do the South Carolina alcohol test. I just wanted to know. Okay, so this got me amped up, because this is a political situation. Is this politics that pisses me off bad, that I will talk about, because there's no controversy based in this. So we had to take the South Carolina test for alcohol if you're food and bev remotely, or carry any alcohol or near it, basically. It was a 4-hour test. It was the dumbest thing I've ever done, maybe in my entire life. And that's saying something. And it really started to grind my gears, because you get in a car and you drive drunk. You get in a wreck, somebody. That's my fault. You made that decision. I don't even drink. It's bullshit. Oh, it's horse shit. It is. And it got me really upset. And I'm thinking about writing a letter, if I can figure out how to use the mail system. I should have brought that up. Warm-ups are the place where I look stupid, and then I divulge my innermost complicated ideals and emotions to you. So I'll get smarter later. That was a really rough start, and that's okay. But this week, what is going on in the autopsy world? We retired the jingle. Thank you. We are just going to divulge. I'm going to kind of have an open therapy session with you guys and just divulge some recent thoughts, opinions, ideals. A lot of it revolving around me not feeling enough, and my worth, and being afraid, and failure, and my honest opinions on all this. We have talked in and out for some of these subjects, but I just had some recent epiphanies, recent ideals that I wanted to share with you guys. So we all watched me have some pretty low lows. mostly revolving around career and honestly worth and some other just personal things in life. I was facing some traumas and stuff off screen, and I wasn't doing well. And it was followed now by some really high highs where I get to be in a great relationship. I get to live in a new home, a new space. And, it's not all about the exterior. Internally, I have hit some growth spurts and I've been able to really blossom. And I think that it includes spiritually. I was missing a lot of my spirituality. And even though I was going through the motions of my meditations and of my journaling and of trying to lean on something else, it just wasn't real. And I've discussed before, my realism comes back and it bites me in the ass. And even though I may be like praying or trying to lean on something else and I don't really label my higher power, I just don't trust that it's gonna help, honestly, deep down. And it just involves me going through motions again. That being said, I wanted to get out of this cycle I recognized of these low lows and these high highs. Not necessarily the cycle, but understanding that I don't have to look at it in such like a cyclistic, that's probably not a word, way. Where when I'm in a low, I'm like, okay, the next is coming. It will get better. And yes, that's a great place to look at life from lows, but it's important that I bring this all together into a bigger picture of life. Because the lows, most of life to me is a construction zone. And all of it is, to be honest. And I hit a point where I recognized that I need something to work for. And I thought I was craving this rest and just to be still and just to enjoy. And what I've grown to understand about myself is that enjoyment revolves around having some degree of work. And we all think we want rest, but in reality, we want a goal set. And we're looking to achieve something. And there is a great pleasure in that I was not recognizing. And I was labeling things as great lows that weren't necessarily great lows. And we'll get into it, but it was the beginning stages, I think, of a really tough bout of like perfectionism in a way that I have never really faced before. And I think trying to get rid of these cycles in the way that I view life meant that I can enjoy the moment even in the lows. And I think to me, more so, enjoying the moment just means me being simply present. And I enjoy that. I enjoy to be present, whether it's difficult or whether it's easy, because I worked so hard to be in the present moment. I worked so hard to be conscious outside of myself. And I still work on that internal dialogue. But I had to settle, and I don't even think settle is the right word. I had to, I'll use it now, settle into the process. As long as I am not running from my problems or bottling them up, then I can exist at the same times as my problems. And I don't have to view my entire life as climbing out of something, constantly like digging out of this hole. Maybe it's a slow-paced way and step-by-step way of me bringing my life into one greater picture versus these cycles and these seasons that we do face and we do go through, but internally not me placing them in such a box. And I think it's allowing me to adapt easier. I think it's making me smarter, dare I say. And I think all this is really helping me reshape and repair my relationship to failure. And recently, and this was a TikTok that sparked all of this. So all of you that hate on TikTok, I saw an edit, and this is not a religious place, but it was edits. People were putting together their face and not to be afraid listed everywhere that it is in the Bible. And something really sparked in me where not to not be afraid was like presenting itself in the forefront of my mind. And it wasn't necessarily a mantra that I was instilling, like for instance, me slowing down this year and the things that we discussed in the New Year's episode. It wasn't but it presented itself as this way that I was kind of starting to maneuver through life and to just jump, And I think that's really hard for people that are routine and now safe. And that's because safety was a goal of my healing. And it's important that I remain in that. And I don't know. I think I was recognizing that failure was much more prevalent in my life than I thought it was. And just because I'm not afraid of failure doesn't mean I don't view it incorrectly. So I do think I have a good relationship in terms of the fact that it's okay if I fail. But when I say that, I mean it on a much broader scale. Like if I put up a shitty episode, or if I am going for these job interviews and things keep not working out for me. But failure in terms of me being like, I did this walk, okay, this ruckathon, which is where you put weight on your back. And it was 22 pounds I had on my back. And I went for 7 miles. And then I walked 7 more. And I took the bag off at 7 miles. And I counted it as a huge failure in my mind. I did. And like, not that I was like so hard on myself. I was having a good time. I was with like, people. But, it wasn't this accomplishment in my brain. I had failed the mission is how I felt. But I didn't even have a set goal going into it. I should have been proud of the fact that I did that. And then those things were transitioning into the pool. They were transitioning into the gym. And I was looking in the mirror. And if I went under 2 minutes on the Stairmaster, or if I'm struggling in my swim times, or I'm really tired and I was getting I'm still struggling with it. I've been getting these side stitches at like the 600 meter mark in the pool. And I don't know why. And I think it's my breathing techniques. I'm not really sure. But it was like these deep failures. And I was really struggling with failure in general. And I really needed to reshape and reframe what that meant to me. One of my favorite things that I have learned is somebody told me, this too shall pass, even the good. And I think in my soul, I do kind of want to elaborate on that because it meant several things to me. And I don't want you to view it in this sort of somber darkness way, but it pulled together the whole agenda again, that my purpose isn't to be perfect. My purpose isn't for me to continuously try to get an A in things that aren't even graded. And it pulled together that picture. And I think that's a very situational way to use that phrase. And I think it definitely applies. And the environment I heard it in was a recovery environment. So it was applied to the sense of alcoholism and to addiction. So it's implying that when things are good, it's going to get bad again. And we can't rest on our laurels, which is hard to do in alcoholism because we tend to run from our problems. It almost gave me this comfort in the fact that it's okay when things are bad. And maybe that's all the cycles coming together too for me, like I discussed, that I don't constantly have to be climbing out of something. And I can exist at the same time that pain exists. So long as I'm following the rules of doing justice to myself and not running. So I don't know. I'm not going to continue to talk about that quote too much because there's a lot of different facets. But I really like that. And I've been introducing that into my life more to keep myself in that pace. And because when I first got sober, I worked a lot on my mood swings. And that's natural, like even if you quit vaping, if you quit sugar, it's very natural to deal with mood swings because you have something else that regulates you in your life. And when that's torn out, you're out of sorts, you're not regulated. And in general, I was mentally disordered. Still am, thanks. Thanks for calling me out on that. I was mentally disordered extremely, and I just could not balance my anger and the way that I felt. And it was starting to really bother me to the point that it was driving me to almost drink again because it felt like that was the only thing that was going to make me just fucking normal and even. And I think that quote is a really good place to apply that as well. If you struggle with the mood imbalances, and that's something that will pass too. So I'm all over the place. We're going to move right back in to the body that I was talking about. And recently we have kind of touched on my health and my fitness life. And exercise is extremely important for mental health. And that is what we're here to talk about most of the time is mental health. And not only was I facing these great failures, so I thought, I was really on the internet so much. And, that's part of winter too. But on the side of the internet, that's these girls in Pilates classes, these girls showing off their defined sets and these amazing bodies. And it feels like I work so hard at mine. And I constantly lose sight of why I am doing what I'm doing when it comes to my health and fitness. And this is somebody who has a past history of EDs and issues of body image. And a lot of you relate to that. And that is not something that goes away. It is hard to deal with, especially when you set goals. And I always have to keep in mind, I still don't track calories. I don't know how much I weigh. I don't measure my waist or anything like that. I don't even weigh my protein to make sure I'm getting the right amount of grams because I get obsessed with the numbers. And so I'm really careful about things. But my purpose fades in and out of why I'm in there. And when my purpose refocuses back on the way that I look, I'm like so fucked. It just never works out. And I had to like put the phone down because I'm like combining all these bodies I want to. Like I'm trying to pick my dream body. Like I don't already have a dream body that's being alive and being a miracle that I got to recover from drugs and alcohol, let alone extreme mental disorders, let alone traumas that I faced. And like, I'm already in the miracle body. I already am in the body of my dreams. But instead I'm like, I want a Pilates stomach. I want to swim back, and I want a gym glute. Like, that's not even how bodies work. Anyways, and I'm like, putting myself in this factory is what it feels like. And I'm not seeing results. And I had to recognize too that we worked a lot on my body image. After Christmas, I got like re-addicted to sugar, and I like was struggling almost with like binge eating. Not necessarily, but I've struggled in my life with binge eating. And now I'm very careful about that too. That is also an ED. And it's encouraged to eat a lot after you starve yourself. And so the other extreme kind of flips, and other people don't call that out because it isn't seen. It's encouraged that you eat. And I was really, really struggling with my body confidence for a little there. And we worked on that. I worked really hard with my image because it was making me a horrible person to be around, if I'm being completely honest. It was affecting relationships in my life because I was so guarded and so becoming insecure again. And insecure Maddie is the worst version of myself. It is a disaster. It is a hurricane, and other things become the enemy. And today's like, and I say this every week, it's always really vulnerable, the things that I talk about. But it's really vulnerable to say that you're insecure or to say that you suffer with things like that. But it's also real, and it's something that we all face. And so I wanted to get to the root. I started feeling better about myself and understanding that I am uniquely made. And it's as simple as that. And I'm unique, not even uniquely made. That implies this behind the scenes religious factor too. But it's more so like I am paired with this body and this mind and this soul in this time. And we talked about that last episode, and it saved me to view myself like that. And it got me back to the root of the way that I look being the least important thing about me. And it was working. And just loving myself wholly in this way. And so I recognized, the insecurity wasn't really based in what I look like. Because when I looked in the mirror, when I started to love myself again from the inside like that, I genuinely looked in the mirror and was like, she looks great. I look the exact same I did 2 weeks before. And that was a beautiful, I remember on a couple occasions being like, wow, like I'm kind of moved by that, honestly, in this moment, because it's hard work to get to that place. And the way that I started to understand is that my insecurity and what I was truly struggling with was this constant worth and this need to please. And we talked a few weeks ago about the pillars of which I viewed life in my perspective. And it really got me thinking. My pillars in life are pretty steady, I would say, at the moment. But I have been trying to please everything. And the way that I am walking around in my life is to please. It was feeling incapable and like I don't do enough. And I think there is a difference in issues in confidence and just being so hard on myself. And they're still a similar category, but there is a difference there. And I needed to break that down to myself. And when I recognized that it was truly a worth problem, because we already know I can't please myself. If I am looking for pleasure within myself and to make sure that I get that A, I'm always going to fail. And I recognize that because of that reason, because I can't be pleased, I was looking for it externally. And I recognize that I can't please other people either. And that's because they're not going to follow the script that I set out for them. They are never going to say what I need them to say for me to feel valuable. And damn. It's honestly kind of sad. Like, it was a really big thing to recognize in myself. I will never get that big prize from them where I feel enough, where I think they're going to reward me with being enough. And it's because it's not coming from me. It's not coming from within, and it's sure as fuck isn't coming out of my power. And it's so sad that I think my subconscious had roamed to a place that I was just searching for validity anywhere. And it wasn't finding it within me anymore. So I kept looking outside of myself because I was being so damaging and so hard on myself because I felt incapable of, and it's me reiterating what I feel incapable of. It's, times, it's body image, it's my career, my life, just in general, sometimes the podcast, everything. It called on me from there to assess my worth. Because where is it coming from? What is my worth? What does that even mean to me? And I really think it's important for us to look at that, because my worth rested in how many reps I could do, or how many podcasts I could get up, or how many people I could be there for at the cost of myself. And it brings me to this topic of, I love helping people. I have always loved helping people in my recovery and in my life. But it was turning into this situation where I think that I owe people. And it's doing it not out of the kindness of my heart or because I'm in service to them. And it brought me to this point where I could, for the first time, really recognize what it means to live in a walking amends. And if you don't know what that means, we've talked about it on here before. And it's part of the program with anonymity in mind. It's that we don't get to go back and change what we've done in our past. We can apologize, but then from there we have to live in an amends out of cleanliness of ourselves. And that's the clean slate that we are provided with, that we get to move forward from these disgusting things we've done in our past. And I could see for the very first time that my living amends means that simply I strive to do the best for me and be the best version of myself. That's what other people want from me. My family, my friends, people that I love, sponsees, everybody, they want me to be happy. And they want me to be the best version of me, where I'm not going back. I'm not drinking again. Most importantly, staying sober, but not going back to the behaviors and old ways of myself. And it brought up the whole situation of needing to please, brought up a very complicated relationship that I needed to rehash with my past. And they were somewhat situational, but it was a general shame re-entering the chat, I feel. And it was a shame over myself. And because of that emotion, it brought back in guilt. And I have a very complicated history with guilt, as do a lot of addicts and alcoholics. And I was getting really frustrated that I couldn't go back and fix what I had done. So instead, I owe people and I'm helping them because I feel I have to. And I'm spreading myself thin, and I lost my voice. And this whole conversation isn't to say I'm in some deep dark hole. This is just assessments that I've made recently, and I feel great about them. I feel like I'm striding forward, and it shows signs of a healthy brain. The fact that I could assess this and choose to move forward is signs of a healthy brain versus me being in a deep dark hole or whatever. Anyways, the conversation of guilt to me mimics another dark hole. And I have a tendency, and I think it's an addict trait, to wander into the darkness. I don't know a better use of that word, and to continue digging. And although it's not drugs and alcohol or mental disorder, it is kind of disordered thinking, actually. It is still not a great place for me to be because I continue to wander into these holes that can't be repaired. And it was causing me again to lose my voice. And I wasn't standing on my true emotions, and I wasn't setting boundaries, and I wasn't, i.e., being the best version of myself. And I really needed to uncomplicate, I don't know that word, me. In general. And it's funny because I heard someone talking about this recently too, and it was important for me to hear that pride isn't necessarily, and a lot of you know this, pride isn't necessarily thinking too highly of yourself, it's thinking of yourself too much. And it was this me constant in my brain. And that's how I lived my life forever before I got clean and before I started this healing journey. And I think it's really complicated for people who lived such a selfish life before, and we are as alcoholism as addicts, and I amplify that, or like whatever the word is, because we were selfish. And yes, we have a disease, but either way, no matter how you look at it, it happened that you were selfish and you chose you over and over again, no matter how complicated that relationship is with alcohol. And I understand that better than anyone else. Like, I understand that with you. Not better than anyone else. Didn't mean that. We're not here for trauma Olympics. But when we get clean, when we get sober, then we live on this flip end that we were in service of others. And we recognize how selfish we had been all this time. And so it's this complete flip side. And it's these two extremes, but we never live in the middle where, we do get to care for ourselves to some degree. And I think that's maybe a personal thing and other people can relate to that. I don't know if everyone has that complication, but I recognize that was maybe the root of losing my voice from time to time and of overcomplicating what I deserve. And, the fact that I can get up and say whatever I want because it's coming from a kind place in my heart. And that's okay. It's coming from an honest place in my heart. And what I was doing is, at that point, I'm losing dishonesty. And that being the first to go for a fucking person that lied all her life and cheated to get her way, like, that's not good. And it doesn't matter where the dishonesty is. It doesn't matter that it's me thinking I'm softening the blow for somebody else or being kind. So I liked that I saw that maybe my selflessness was becoming a detriment to myself, and I wasn't finding peace in my removal of my past the way I thought I had. So I went on a few tangents. Behind the scenes, after assessing the pillars and this whole pleasing situation of the way that I'm genuinely living my life, I needed a root for the cause, as I often do. And, aside from the fact of this perfectionism being born out of self-loathing to some degree, I recognized that I was running from a question. And in trying to find my career and my space in life, which is a beautiful, fun thing to be able to do, let alone freedom as a young woman to be able to do that. And the opportunity that I have to be able to do that, which is a beautiful thing, and I should be grateful for that journey on its own, is what does Maddie really want? And I was sprinting away from that question because I did not know. And I sat back and recognized that question has been over my head, looming at me, keeping me awake since I was 18. And I've talked about this situation before, but I vividly remember my mom coming to my college town, and I was just bawling my eyes out to her and just like I struggled so early with not knowing what I want. And because it was complicated, because I feel like I know who I am, but I don't know what I want. And so I would do all the soul searching to understand that I know who I am. And yes, there's so much to learn, and I continue to learn in my subconscious. But why is this not aligning? And so instead of finding the answers from within, I'm asking others, like, what do you think I should do? Which is great. It's important to lean on others and ask others for help, and others are our teachers and our mirror. And that's important, but to the point that I need them to answer for me because I can't. And then that's what causes me to look to them for pleasing too. And I'm just sprinting from that question. And I needed to sit back and truly ask myself. And like a couple nights in the darkness and just alone being like, what do you want? And I found it beautiful that the answer, just like when I was 18, is to be happy and to find peace. And it gave me a lot of reassurance because that is like the main path. And I lose sight and not being enough. But here I am, still clean, still sober, and still pushing to understand these very complicated ways that I live in my internal struggles and building my walls that I have. And it's like I'm doing great though. But I really appreciated that simplicity was re-entering my view. And I think it really helped that, my New Year's resolution was to slow down and was pace. And I haven't lost sight of that since January. I've worked a lot on my pace. And I learned, I'll say it again, I probably said this 3 times recently, that the monks say when you're in a rush to even slow down more. Which is like, come on, let's be realistic. But it's been working for me. And really, I think pace entering is what allowed simplicity back in and made it a much more comfortable process for me. And I think that really saved me because I was creating, again, this is a theme for me, this full plate of trying to hit my goals, but really I'm subconsciously not leaving enough room to hear me and to hear my pains. And the slowing down left like this gap, that coupled with this courage and this to not be afraid and to jump mentality that luckily has entered me, like left a room in the door to reach in and kind of grab her and heal her without feeling overcomplicated and overwhelmed by it. Because when I purposefully shut myself out sometimes, it is like I am crying and I am like really upset at the fact that I shut her out. Versus understanding that I am a human and that it's natural for me to not want to hear my emotions, especially with addict tendencies and other mental disorders where I'm scared to fall because I'm scared I won't get back up. But I've proven to myself over and over again that I get back up because that's the only choice. Kind of lost my train of thought, but you guys know what I'm saying. I like doing just therapy sessions with you guys and like just being real about it because some of you might not relate to any of this, but at the same time, like it's so fun secretly to be able to like go about life in this way. And like this introspective piece of my life is what I truly love to do. Like I've always been introspective and what is the word? Like an existential thinker. And I used to be an existential crisis ass bitch. And I still have that from time to time. But it's always been what I loved, whether I was sober or not. And it's like kind of this dream world of this internal curiosity that I get to engage in where it's part of me. I get to just like explore and have fun with it. And it stays curious. And it's just another tangent. So really my brain gets revolving around this me thing and my little tiny life. And how important it is that I be perfect and get everything done. And so these are new realizations in the terms of I think it's kind of the beginning stages as a people pleaser. And I have really, really struggled with that a lot of my life, people pleasing. And I think it's the beginning stages of seeing it in a different, like more complicated light. So I don't have all the answers. And this is something that I'm learning to divulge now. And I'm just kind of like trusting the process and trusting my brain. But I know that now I'm going to be measuring my worth more on in terms of where is my worthiness coming from? What does it actually mean to me? And when I am doing things, if it's in pleasure of other people or in a bad pleasure of myself, if it's in pursuit of body image or just certain things, that it's going to get a big X. And I am going to put my foot down and learn that the pathway of my life doesn't have to be so complicated that I'm looking externally for validation. So we're going to like catch back up on what exactly I do to deal with this whole situation. I think the first step, though, as they all say, is admitting that you have a problem. And it brings me peace to have this big epiphany in my life, because I can see why she's so upset. And it's great. Like, I don't know how to describe that, but it's like, oh, bitch, I get it. This is why you're panicking and freaking out. And making sure that when I answer these questions, it isn't revolving around how do I become enough, though. It's in terms of how do I get comfortable with myself and remembering and getting back to the root that my validation comes from my power from within and or my higher power and or whatever. And it's great to know that I've had the relationship before. My validation doesn't all come from an external thing. I think it's a period of life that's happening to me right now in pursuit of the rest of my life. I repeat myself. So it's exciting to get comfortable in that. And the answer being that I get to dive back into that versus I have to become enough. And it's just like when we talk about losing weight or doing whatever, it's about gaining the confidence. It's not about the fact that you're going to lose the weight. It's getting comfortable with who you are. And the other day I had a realization, and again, I don't want this to be the main takeaway of all this to be about body image. I talk about it because I need to, and because a lot of people don't talk about it. And I think it's super important to talk about. But I had a realization looking in the mirror the other day that like, I'm almost 30. I'm not, I mean, I'm 26. And so the body I'm in right now is like a woman's body. And like my uterus is protected by a little pooch. And so what? Like, bitch, it's great. I look great. And, you know, I'm not 22 years old anymore. I'm not going to be like this perfect, tight little body. And it's like this expectation, again, of chasing the youth in life. And, you know, I think that's something that society puts on us. But that's not the episode today. I do have a whole episode on being afraid of aging and fear of aging that I think some of you should tune into because it was something I had to assess in my life. So the goal is just to reintroduce this idea of just being a human. And it's bringing a childlike wonder back into life and back into like my humanity and just like having fun again. So just some recent overcomplicated thoughts. And that's pretty much all I have. Next week, we have a much more alcoholism and sobriety based subject, and it's already like a lot more set in stone than today. I just wanted to talk about some recent findings is all. So I hope you could take something away from that, and I hope it wasn't too strange. So I love you, and I hope you have a great week. Bye.